Open or shut the door? It's up to you.
Let's keep it open for now, unless
Okay.
it must be fun. It just
Every once in a while, a kid will come running through, but
part of the ambiance.
got it. And this is coming from a guy that couldn't spell cat if you spotted me the C and the T. I was never, believe me, a big academic guy at all. Space right 131.
I hope that's not your favorite play.
No,
Come on, let's make it
jet,
more fun.
twin left 152. These are running plays. You got to establish the run.
Establishing the run even in this exercise.
Absolutely.
It's a mess in this attic. Lot going on, but there ain't no need to panic. Coming up and join, we getting wild, getting manic. Spitting truth for all you fanatics. Every week got something new to say. Ain't no filter, this shit coming straight from the brain. It's coming straight from the brain. Yeah, it's coming straight from the brain.
That sounds good. Okay, I'm sweaty, folks. Thanks for tuning in. I have a special guest today, one that I've been wanting to interview you, Dave, for a long time. But I'm going to be honest, I didn't think you'd be interested. So
Absolutely. Hey, anything to help out a past Garber Duke, especially a football guy. Duke Open this year, Saturday, August 21st, 9 a.m., Bay County course, $320 per foursome, which includes your cart, your golf, your lunch, your dinner at the end, the door prizes, all that sort of stuff. And all that money goes back equally to all of our sports teams. If you're not interested, can't make it, but like to buy a golf sign for your business or just yourself or your family, it's $100. Contact me, 989-460-2426.
first time we got a personal number given out.
Yes.
No prank
Well,
calling.
that's not a personal. That's the one that's been ringing off.
You can see how he handles calls that come in. So leave
Hit
a
the
message for
voicemail.
him. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Dave.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Why don't you tell a little bit about yourself?
32nd year, believe it or not. I still am amazed in education. And starting that this year, and this is be my 22nd year at Garber High School. Various roles that I've held since I've been here, and have enjoyed every role that I've had and have learned a lot. But really looking forward to the, I guess I'll say, the twilight of my career, and hopefully being involved in some great changes that are still going on here at Garber High School in Essexville, Hampton.
Yeah.
And looking forward to following our sports and leading our sports and assisting our coaches as a resource and building the best student athletes that we possibly can. So I never thought I'd be in education this long, let alone Garber High School, but I'm certainly glad that I have been.
Well, I feel like, so the context for who Dave is to me, Dave's first real head coaching job, I guess not real, first head coaching job at the varsity level at least, was here at Essexville Garber when my class was coming into high school. Mm-hmm. And so we had been known as kind of the punching bag here at Garber of the conference for quite some time, basically since the 80s.
Yeah.
And you were from across town. You came, took this job, probably to the chagrin of some of your advisors, telling you, we'll get into that a little bit. But in terms of my friend group and all the surrounding friend groups that are, you've made a huge impact on us. I can't even try to describe that. And throughout today's episode, I'm gonna be splicing in some messages from some of your former players. Wow. Which I didn't give them a script. I just said whatever you think. So there'll probably be some humor in there. So that's the context. You've been a super important guy to me, to many of my friends. So thanks for sitting down.
Absolutely.
I remember though, when you first were starting here and we first got to know you, you would say things like this, and I'm assuming it's true because you're an honest guy, that like you probably didn't see yourself as an educator when you were kind of like a high school kid, did you?
I don't think anybody in the face of the earth saw me as an educator in any way, shape, or form. And as a matter of fact, I get past coaches that talk to me about that and talk about some of the thoughts that they had back in the day with myself and some of the circle of guys that I ran with and what we did. Right. And I think that just makes it all the better, and the fact that I ended up going into something that had such a huge influence on me back in those days, and I didn't even realize it.
You kind of were paying it forward without even realizing.
I think along those lines, yeah.
Who were some of the heroes back from your day?
Oh, without a doubt, Coach Loop. Coach John Loop is the longtime head football coach at John Glenn. Coach Ken Fowler, the longtime assistant coach, or one of them, Tim Lavasser, longtime coach there, and didn't really. I think we knew how special of a program we were involved in coming up. John Glenn football meant everything, and it had a ring to it, and it had a success to it. But you never really realize how successful that program was and what those coaches did for you as young kids and the things that they instilled until you got out. And even now, 30-some years later, I'm still going back and drawing back on some of those experiences and the things that were said and the things that were done and how much of an influence it had.
Right.
So very, very fortunate to have come through a place like that had such great mentors and that made all the difference.
So we'll get into your coaching style and things more and more as we go. But what if someone had a gun to your head and they said, "What about John Loop and Fowler and Lavasser and those folks?" Then, when you were going through it, what spoke to you? Like, why did you respect them? Why were you willing to follow those guys?
It's because we saw the determination, the effort, 12 months a year that they put into that. And it wasn't just X's and O's or football. It was creating relationships with people, which they did. And you got to remember, back in those days, it wasn't a big deal to see 60 or 70 kids on a varsity football team.
Right.
And I think both my years, we had 60 kids in the team picture in both of those, my junior and senior year. And we only were a school of 1,200 kids at the time. So I think what it was the effort that they put into creating relationships, building a program so kids like myself, that whether you came from the good side of the tracks or the bad side of the tracks, you had a chance to develop and be the best that you could be. And it was all through the crazy game of football that we all love, but the life experiences and things that I know we were able to take from that were unbelievable.
Yeah, and they apply to everything.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, right.
And it's not just football. It can be any sport or any arts program, anything that you put your heart and soul into it, and you have good people around you that know what they're doing and want to provide you great lifelong learning experiences. You're crazy not to benefit. You're a fool not to benefit from that.
And it's hard not to want to emulate those people too.
Oh, absolutely. I found myself saying things that Coach Loop said, or Coach Petty and the people in Mount Pleasant, or the CMU coaches that I learned from and were around. Right. I found myself doing a lot of those things. But that's how you learn. And then as time goes on, you mold it into what you believe and your philosophies, and hopefully you create a few things on your own as you move through and do your own things. So I
feel like a lot of the stuff I write, I feel like I can look back on it immediately while I'm writing and see like that we're all just kind of collections of our experiences and collections of the people we've met. Yeah. And even to the extent of like, I love my parents, but there are times when some of the negatives that I used to see that would come through in me, and you have to be aware of what the good and bad is that's coming out of you, and trying to identify where that comes from.
I think we're all thieves. We steal from people. We steal with whether it's cliches like we talked about a little bit earlier before we got on set here, and we talk about philosophies that we get from people, and we steal, and then the key is to mold it into what you believe, right? And then hopefully you get off and run, and then you become productive with some things.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you have to modernize your approach to fit whatever the cultural, which you experienced. From 2000, when you took the job, you probably were already thinking, wow, we've really softened, or we've really got to be more careful than John Loop used to have to be. But since 2000, it's been even more insane in terms of that shift, right? So
society has changed, and culture changes, and expectations change, and mandates change, and we deal with that. God, we've dealt with that more this past year with the COVID in high schools and in interscholastic athletics than I ever thought in a million years we'd have to do. Yeah. But, you have to change, and you have to adapt, and that's the only way you can survive, especially nowadays.
Yeah, so you're an athletic director. You've been the AD. Have you been the AD the entire time you've been at
when
Garber?
I was hired in, and I've always been very appreciative. A Joe Today and a Bob Moore and a Tom Trombley. I remember those guys were on the interview committee, and they took a chance in me. They took a huge chance.
You were only 30, right?
I was 30 at the time, and I think they had interviewed 8 guys or so, and I was the only one that either A, had never been a head coach, or B, at the time was not a head coach. Right. So they took a big risk. I had, obviously the John Glenn people in having some friends here that were already in this district stuck their neck out for me, and I went into the interview and told them a bunch of lies, and they bought every one of them. And but they did. I think they had to stick.
They saw the passion.
They believed in me, and I'm glad that they did, because they gave me an opportunity, which at that age, you got to really work for your first opportunity. I mean, you got to get a break, and you got to have some people go to bat for you, and you got to get lucky a lot of times to get that first opportunity.
And you also have to be willing to take a job that isn't going to be lined up with a bunch of awesome candidates either. No offense to the other 7 or 8 guys.
Absolutely. And when you're looking to get your first job in any line of work, but especially as a high school football coach or college coach or whatever, a lot of times you're going to end up in a position which isn't very desirable. It's a program that struggled, or they've got this disadvantage or this disadvantage or whatever. And as a young man, God, 30, geez, that's a long time ago. But the things that you didn't know, and I didn't know at that time, coming into a program, and the things that we implemented, and God, it's just amazing how you would do things so differently now if it was a first-year deal. Yeah. But again, very thankful, very lucky. Those guys were believers, and I've had great support with any facet of my job since I've been here. Yeah. And if I was to have failed, it's completely on me, because I had great resources from kids to adults around me all the time here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the advantage of a district like this, where we've been athletically maybe disadvantaged over the time, but there has been a pretty solid community support and things
Absolutely.
Like that.
Yeah. Yep. And in a community like this, you can only support so much. It's only so big.
Right. And but there's arts and there's science, there's Olympiad, and all this shit.
And that's, people always say, we won our first state title in school history a couple of years ago in bowling. Girls bowling.
Nice.
It was the first one. And now we've had a bunch of state champions as individuals, and everyone says, well, you don't have a lot of success. And I say I completely disagree with that, because of all the programs that we have in sports and in the arts, and all the things that we have to get kids to want to be involved in so we can keep these programs and to be able to field these teams. Our participation numbers are through the roof, and that's what builds experiences and relationships. Yes, the TVC titles, the Bay County titles, the district titles, all those things are great, and we've got our fair share.
Right.
But as far as giving the kids the opportunity and those types of things and letting them learn, that's the bottom line.
And it's interesting that you say that, because when we were always drawn to you, we always had a parental type love for you, and now it's more like a friend situation. But kind of like that cool uncle, still has an authority position, but you're more comfortable than you are with your dad or something. Yeah. But
you guys can really tell me what you think now. It works so good,
we're always honest. We love you, man. It's like, but it's funny, because back when we were all alpha male, 17, 18-year-old kids, it was all about winning to us and all that. And that's good. We did win a lot.
We did.
In a lot of our sports. And football was no exception. But at the same time, even as younger, aware kids, we kind of knew it wasn't just about that at the end of the day. And I'm happy to see now that that was actually your approach.
Just had
you weren't really all you wanted to win. That was the number one thing. But it wasn't like sell out, do whatever you have to do to win. There was more than that too.
And I think as a young coach, sometimes you get very you can get derailed very easily, because you come in thinking it's about X's and O's and winning, and especially at a program that hadn't been winning.
And there's pressure.
Got to leave our mark, and we got to get this thing going. But at the end of the day, if you don't start first with relationships and getting people to buy what you're selling, and the only way that they can do that is they know that you're genuine, that you have their their best thoughts in mind. And I wasn't always perfect with that. No, not at all.
You're never going to get perfect alignment for all that, because everyone's got personal things.
You had to pay a price, and part of that price was putting your heart and soul into something, spending the time, getting the people to realize that you were doing it for the right reasons. And not everybody's going to buy in, and not everybody did. Right. But again, you put your best foot forward, and you hope to get some breaks along the way, and that's what we had.
That's one of the great coach speaks sentences I've ever heard.
Oh, well,
you got to put one foot in front of the other, and you get some good breaks.
You got to get some breaks, man.
But the way that you endeared yourself to the teams, and I think you would agree with this, is you took a program that literally had no weight program, and the results were being seen on the field. And that first summer you got here in 99, I guess?
Yeah, it would have been the summer of 99. Yeah.
I mean, you were in the weight room 5 days a week. Yeah. Sometimes running your ass off on the treadmill listening to Prince. Sometimes, most of the time, just organizing, getting other kids to understand what we're doing. You probably were teaching lifts, because nobody really knew. Yeah. And it was evident right away when you started that, okay, this guy's walking the walk for sure. Yeah. Even though we didn't necessarily want to go in the weight room, it was still something we had to do.
And part of that, a big part of that is we get back to the fact that who mentored you.
Right.
I mean, when I was at John Glenn, we were one of the only programs around that had summer lifting and the programs.
Back in the mid-'80s.
Early mid-'80s. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then Mount Pleasant, we had a lot of that going. So those are things that if you're fortunate enough to be around good people and people that understand it, and they were around good people, and you don't know that stuff as a young person unless you're around it. You don't just wake up one day and say, okay, I know this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that like to think they do,
of course,
but you don't. And you got to be mentored by the right people. And that's what I brought here. That's what I knew. It wasn't always perfect. It wasn't always right. I remember the days of having the old phone in the weight room, and if a kid didn't show up for a morning lift, he was on the phone right away. And they were in there for the evening lift because they had to pick one of the two. And I'd hate to seen the phone bill at that time that came out of the weight room. But that's what you had to do. And that's what, as a young coach and as a young person involved in any new profession that you're involved, you're fired up.
Yeah.
And
you have to be.
And you gotta put something into it to get something out of it. And that's the only way you can approach it.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
And I think what stands out a lot about Coach Schwartz is Coach Schwartz was always just up there. He was always up in the weight room. He was at the school after hours. I mean, if he had to take a kid after school and do one-on-one work, whether it be throwing, catching, one-on-one weight room, all that stuff, Coach Schwartz was always up there. He brought in a great staff of coaches, and they flipped the entire program around. And, from about 1999 to 2010, I think he won 5 TVC championships, which is incredible. And he always had a plan, and he was always hyper-organized. Now, Coach Schwartz helped me come back from Maryland and get a job in the state of Michigan. He reached out, and after not talking to him for a few years, just because, life happens, it was like no time had ever elapsed. And Coach Schwartz has been a great resource for me, not just from an X and O standpoint, but just how to manage difficult situations as a head coach, because you really don't understand what it's like until you're the head coach and you have to deal with every issue in your program. But Coach Schwartz has always been a solid guy you can call, and he's always there for you. And he's always been like that. He's always been a guy that's kids first. And, going back to when I played, but now as an adult, I still call him Coach. And Coach, I just want to say congratulations. And thank you for everything you've done for me and for Essexville Garber High School in your career. Have a good day.
So you coached at the varsity level here at Garber, Essexville Garber, from 2000 to what, 13?
Yeah, I started off in the fall of '99, and then I stepped back after the 2009 season.
2009, so
11
decade.
seasons here as a head coach. Yes, and then did some other things with some other schools and started working with some area quarterbacks. And at the same time, my day job was always the athletic director. 4 of those years, it was the assistant principal at Kramer.
Yep.
Which
my mom worked. I think my mom worked with you back in that day.
Yep.
Those days. Yep.
And then I've taught classes, some geography classes in the classroom, and then now still doing some PE and some strength and conditioning. So doing a lot of different things. I think one year was even a community ed experience. I like to call it community enrichment.
Yeah.
One Mr. Harris would like to say, which everybody's friend, Mr. Harris. And so yeah, it's been a lot of great experiences here, and a lot of great people have certainly been resources for me along the way.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
So in those, but now it's so you were head coach for 11 years. You did a lot of work before that. So now you've essentially though been out of the game for about 11, 12 years now.
Not really. One of my closest friends was Mike Boyd, the AD at Novell, and my first year when I was done here, I was just taking a step back, and he kind of had me start coming out and work with the quarterbacks, and really got involved there a lot more the last 11 years than I ever thought I would, and I'm glad that I did. We had a lot of great times and some state titles, and met some great kids and great families, and just another great experience for me.
Yeah.
And at the same time, though, was still, involved with Coach Coquillard and his things that he was doing with the program, and being
because you built it, you wanted to be part of it.
Well, we all did.
Right.
We all did. I just happened to have the name next to the head coach spot.
But the current coach, Jake Coquillard, had been assisting you for years.
Oh yeah,
before that.
And that's the other thing too. We were very lucky with that. You guys really reaped the benefits from was myself, I was a young head coach, but you also had a lot of young assistants around here that were teachers in the district that wanted to really dive in.
Yeah.
And Coach Coquillard and Coach Miller and all these guys were at the forefront. Zeilinger and Coach, Coach Rivard was around forever.
Jazz Monk, and even the old guard like
Coach
Stefaniak
Sandsburn,
was awesome as a JV coach for us.
And we had brought some new ones. Coach White and Coach Archer and Coach Reed has been a fixture here forever.
Yeah.
And Coach Stefaniak, we brought him back, which was one of the best moves that I ever made as a head coach here, and getting him to come back and do our lower levels.
He was an awesome coach.
Johnny on the spot. I mean, just top notch from every angle. And we had a lot of young people that really wanted to learn and take off, and we did it together.
Right.
We were kind of the blind leading the blind there for a little bit.
Of course.
We just every day we learned a little bit more, and we were passionate about it. And if you're not, you shouldn't be doing what the heck you're doing, because it just ain't going to be what it has the potential to be.
Yeah.
And that's the way we looked at it.
I kind of feel like a little slogan that I've been developing is like either go all in or get the fuck out.
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
Whether you're working your hardest or working really hard not to hate something, you're still putting in the same amount of effort. You might as well find the thing that's going to that you're really going to be able to get excited about.
Absolutely. And you know what? And sometimes you don't stay excited with that particular thing forever.
Right.
And then you'll look to move on. We all get a little stale, and we all get a little bit in the doldrums. And I've had to pick myself up a lot in regards to saying, hey, look, okay, we're starting to get on cruise control here. Yeah. What's the next project? What's the next thing that we can do to help our student athletes and our coaches?
Right.
And I've had to do that a lot.
Yeah.
Because you get cruising and life gets going, and you get in a little comfort zone, and you got to find ways to break that.
Yeah.
Coach Schwartz, getting to talk in the attic. Thank you so much for everything you did for me. I appreciate everything so much, all the time, effort, and energy you put in on an impressionable young kid. Made a huge difference in my life and what I've done, what I'm still doing. As a father now, I take a lot of the good lessons you taught me, the examples you set for me as a young kid. I was pretty impressionable. If it weren't for you, I don't think I even would have went to college. So everything you've done for me, has kind of pushed me in the right direction. So thank you so much. I enjoy our relationship now, getting to raise our two little kids together. So it's going to be a fun ride, and I expect to see a lot in the future. Good man, Coach. Thanks.
Well, you've stayed fit. I mean, you look the same as you did when you started here.
Yeah. Well, part of that is
how do you do that
with the stress of the jobs? Okay. Everything that you do. Man, I've just learned that if it wasn't for the exercise, sometimes and clearing your head and clearing the stress, I'd lose my mind. And that's just my way of coping with that stuff. Some people like to, everyone has their thing. Some like to gamble. Some like to eat. Some like to drink. Some like to smoke.
You like to run until your Achilles heel explodes.
Yeah, exactly. And then one day I'll end up in a hospital bed because every bone and nerve tendon in my body's busted, and I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Right.
So that I just found that to be a very important thing for me. So I appreciate that comment. And I know I don't look 23. I know that I'm more 53, but at the end of the day, I feel good about things.
Let's take a trip down memory lane a little bit. Then we'll dive back into some more lessons. But I remember it well because your college friend, Jim Miller, was coaching, was teaching PE for at junior high. Mm-hmm. And my friends and I were in the pool that you just took me through a tour. You've updated the pool. Everything looks, the facilities look great here. And Miller, it was a day where we got to wear the suits that we chose. Okay. And at the time, the pool had these standard issued, like borderline burlap Speedos that were like saggy kind of.
I think they're still back there.
They're probably still back there, but there were ones that were extra small. And I was like probably 150 pounds at this point. And I remember a bunch of us put these extra small Speedos on. Yeah. We're in the pool messing around on the diving board, and Miller scrambles in and says, "Oh, I'm bringing the future coach in here to tell him about how much talent we got in 8th grade, and you guys are looking like fucking, And so the first time I met you, Mike Rossi, JJ, and I, we had these tight, like our do you remember that?
Well, the good thing about that, and I'm glad you brought that up. No, I don't remember that, and I'm glad I don't remember that.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't,
because that would have been a sight that might have really scarred me right from the get-go.
Yeah, so thinking about Coach Schwartz here, it's funny, it just occurred to me recently. I was exchanging some messages with John Matthews, about that player-coach relationship, and it's just lasting. Even though I'm a father, a professional, haven't put on a football helmet in 20 years, Coach Schwartz is still coach, and every time I see him, it's coach, and that's how it will be. I think. Kids are smart. They see when an adult, makes a big investment of time and an energy, in their growth and their well-being, and their development. Kind of that, the character building stuff that, kind of pays off, well into the future, and taught us a lot of discipline. He expected a lot from us. He was very consistent. He's very organized, always very well prepared. And it kind of turns out that that's what you need, to run a football program. That's what you need to win the TVC. But that's also what you need to just generally be successful in life, in business, as a husband, as a father. But we also just had so much fun, like camping out, at the CMU football camp, and just so many ridiculous moments, in the locker room, whatever. Probably best not repeated, but it was just such a cast of characters, and just a lot of shit talking, among the coaches, to each other, giving the players a hard time, but it was always in fun, it was always in good fun. It was always really positive. It was always about the kids. It was always about, kind of getting the best out of everybody. It was just great memories, and a lot of respect, and just very, very appreciative. And, and I don't know, nothing more. We beat Glenn.
There's so many of those instances back in the day, getting to know people and starting from anew and getting things going and putting our own stamp on things, that there's a lot of those great memories when you first meet people, and great thoughts. Most of them you forget because there's so many of them.
We have millions of memories together now. Yeah.
But no, it was anytime you say Coach Miller, it usually has an interesting twist to it in a fun way, and he's doing well, and I still stay in touch with Coach Miller
me too.
and stuff. All the coaches that we've had here, really blessed with, and not just football. As an AD, I work with obviously all the coaches and assistant coaches and volunteer coaches and all that stuff. And boy, I'm not trying to put a plug in, but we really got some good people in front of our kids, and it's my job to make sure that that's the case. Again, no one's perfect. No one's going to be Nick Saban overnight or anything like that.
He's not perfect either.
No, he's not. And so we're very pleased with the types of people that have come through here as coaches.
Yeah, we were talking when we were touring the grounds before we started here about the fact that what's your enrollment at Garber High School right now?
Right now we're down to about 550.
So 550 kids.
Yep.
You have the amount of programs that have blossomed since you started, even, and this is during a time of economic strife in a lot of cases, and then the fact that you even have a pool, the fact that it's pretty impressive what you've done here.
Well, I don't know if I've done all that.
What the community's done, whatever it is.
I think that a lot of that was in place. The previous administration, Joe Today was a longtime athletic director here, 25 years.
I still say I'm on Facebook friends with him. He's awesome.
He's fan. He's still in his 40s sometimes. The way that the shape that he's
there's some similarities there between the two of you.
And I take that as a compliment.
Of course.
He there was a lot of great things in play here, and we already had a lot of sports for a school our size. We've added some since I've been here, but those were school board things that they've got to want to do that and see the value in it. And thank God we've always had a very supportive school board that understands those things. But I talk about that all the time at banquets and Meet the Dukes and all that sort of stuff. Is look. We have just as many sports programs and offerings as Bay City Central does across the street, and they're twice as big as us, if not more.
Right.
So we have to get our kids to take advantage of this. And in a day and an age where everybody's about specialization, we work very hard at making sure that our kids are at least considering strongly in playing two sports. 3 is ideal. But that's just a trend. That's something kids don't grow up with anymore. It's very hard to play 3 sports because of all the demands.
It is.
So we have so many opportunities here at Garber High School for 550 kids. In our league, I don't see anybody that has what we have. We've got everything.
Right.
And we're glad that we do.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. So let's go back to your football career a little bit, your coaching career. your record each of the first 5 or 6 years that you were here, and you know, because I mean, like that's a pretty. I think there's a lesson here because it would have been easy to quit after a couple seasons.
Well,
perhaps.
I think, and you look in the mirror a lot, and you ask yourself, am I cut out for this? Am I the right guy for this place? Am I what they're looking for? You question yourself, and you should. Okay, when things aren't going well. So I've always been one that you try not to point the finger.
Yeah.
You look in the mirror when things aren't going well.
You taught us about accountability
and you
and
say,
all that. Yeah.
what am I not doing
Yeah.
that is making people not be as successful as they potentially could be? I think we lost our first 12 games, and most of those weren't close. But
Which includes an 0-9 campaign. Then.
oh yeah, it was in actually in a couple of those games, the score was close. But when you go back and really break down the video, it really wasn't close. Our kids did some wonderful things to stay in those games. So,
yeah. And they're working hard and they're buying in. Yeah.
They had completely bought. They were doing everything that they could. I just think when you're that young and you don't see the kids get a win, and as a young staff, you're not getting rewarded with wins, because at the end of the day, at the varsity level, they keep track of wins.
Of course.
You know, that's what you're hired to do, is to win a few games.
Right.
I think that, it's very easy to question yourself, and that was tough. And I remember that first win, I think it was the 4th game of our second year in 2000. And boy, that was like winning the Orange Bowl.
Yes.
For everybody around here. And we had no problem celebrating that one.
Right.
And
Off the schneid.
Yeah, and then we actually won the next one too. And so things started to roll from that standpoint a little bit at that time. But again, it was all about the process. And not that the process was perfect or right, or, because if there was one right way, everybody'd be doing it.
Right.
And but we felt good about what we were doing, and the process was what it was all about, and kids were buying in, and then that's what took off.
And you were seeing incremental results, because you were 0-9, 3-6, 7-2. And then from that point, you started to get some undefeated seasons mixed in.
Yeah.
Thanks to our class, of course.
Absolutely.
But I mean, like, it's helpful to weathering 0-27 situations a little different than starting to see some momentum happening.
Absolutely. I mean, we went from 0-9 to 3-6 to winning the first TVC title in a long time and getting in the playoffs, and then having to deal with a team that would have beat the Lions right off the bat, Chesting, which was a great experience as well. But it was such and you mentioned it earlier. The cool thing about it was there were so many elements to that success. Whether it was people, whether it was resources, whether it was financial thing. I mean, there were so many things that wanted people in things that we needed to bring together to get this program going. And we didn't always know if it was the right thing. Right. But we had better kids coming through. Okay, we had, in regards to kids that had an experience, had already played football, and that gets back to the youth programs we had, led by your dad, and I think even below that, we had a Panthers team or something. There were so many kids that were coming through that were in front of good people at those youth ages, that by the time they came to us, they still wanted to be involved in football, and they understood the relevance of it and what it can do for you as a young man and all that stuff. Right. So some of those first groups we had just didn't have a lot of that.
They had never played.
They never really played, and they were now getting a new coach that sometimes didn't know if he was left or right, and a new staff.
New playbook
and all that stuff, and we were learning and stuff. So that 0-9 team, that first group of guys, man, they really set the tone. And I've told a few of them that I've seen and over the years, and I don't know if they really buy that, but it's the honest to God's truth, because they started doing the things that you had to do to give you any chance. And I don't think they understood why you did it or why it was important or why it was relevant. Right. But they started it. The other group saw it and continued it. Your group wasn't far behind.
Right.
And you guys started doing those types of things. Right. And then before you knew it, some things started to take off.
And that just becomes the expectation too.
It does.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about weightlifting, and it was about getting out for other sports and competing in other sports.
Representing the programs when you're outside of school.
Absolutely. Making sure you're taking care of things academically.
Yeah.
Making sure that you're doing the right thing at midnight at a Taco Bell on a Friday night.
Right.
Because those are all things that can sideswipe a program real quick if the right decisions aren't being made. And I'm sure at times the right decisions weren't made. I mean, I wasn't perfect in high school myself.
Of course not. Yeah.
But and my people would tell you that from high school. But I just think, like I said, so many factors had to come into play. And it wasn't just about talent or it was just so much more about people all really trying to go the right direction.
Kirk, sorry I'm a little late. Coming to you live from the traffic cam. Dave Schwartz dedication video, take 1. It's great growing up being your star pupil in your world studies class. I believe I just missed out on all-state academia team that year. Could be all-state academic, I'm not sure. I didn't make the team, but I was that close based on your teaching. It's really great to learn about all the different cultures and maps that we colored. Also, you had some of the best one-liners I'd ever seen, and I've never seen anybody get stung by bees more in my life than you, which was typically followed by a silence. And then God damn it! You know, again, really always good to hear about your technical skills. You know, one of the more impressive pieces was your email ability and how you generate those. It's the most powerful way I've ever heard somebody describe sending an email. Again, really appreciate everything. I take some of the lessons that you taught us. It's really hard to say. It's 20 years ago into my life, still today. And glad I had the chance to meet you, have you as a coach, and it's always great to see you when I come back home. So thank you again.
And that's a good segue into really what coaching is. People that I came back after I quit at Saginaw Valley and coached for your lower levels for a couple years, which is a good experience for me. But I know that if I could redo that, I would have been different. But I was a 20-year-old kid.
100%.
But like you start to realize pretty quickly that coaching has very little to do with X's and O's. Now that's not to say your playbook wasn't awesome and that was great, but it becomes a lot of ego management, personality management, staff management, kids. So how would you sum up what really
I think
coaching
the older
is
you get, I think you realize that X's and O's become more and more of a smaller part of the whole deal. Now, are they important, trying to put kids in the right position? And yes. But you know what? I think that stuff is way overblown.
Yes.
I don't care what you run. I don't care how you do it. If it's the most complex system compared to the most ordinary, basic, fundamental thing in the world. If the kids buy what you're selling, and if you know how to teach, not coach. You see, anybody can coach. Anybody can sit down in front of their TV on a Saturday afternoon with a Fresca and a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos, and coach the
Still rocking the Cool Ranch Doritos.
And watch the Big Ten game of the week and have all the answers. Oh, yeah. That's coaching. But can you get out and study the game and then know how you're going to teach something? And that's something as a young coach that I don't think you really understood what the value of that was much until you got older and you realized it ain't X's and O's. It's teaching, and it's getting people to want to support the entire entity of things.
Right.
And boy, as an older guy now, in learning all that stuff and seeing it, it just tells you, boy, I'd do a lot of things differently if I had a chance to do it over.
If you let's not wallow in regret. You're not that kind of guy. But what are just off the top of your head? What are a couple things you would have done differently now that you're a little, just more mature? You're an older guy.
Well, I think the first thing is which is not the most important thing, but you learn from the X's and O's. God, I would have done different in this situation. I would have maybe threw this formation.
Yeah, I don't want to hear I should have thrown to John Matthews on the third down. I don't want to hear that shit.
And I probably should have thrown to him even more.
Probably every play, really. Yeah.
But he was as special as he was. But I just think you learn how to handle stress and handle stressful situations, and your competitive nature, and always trying to keep things at an even keel.
Yeah.
You don't get too high, you don't get too low. And just on how you handle certain situations and how you treat people within those situations, and just always keeping in mind that how you treat people, and not that we treated people bad, it's just that it's a people thing.
Yeah, it comes back around when you don't.
Yeah, right. And sometimes always those little things that you could do to make people feel appreciated about being involved a little bit, and not just be so locked in to the X's and O's and the winning and the Wednesday's practice and then the February lift, and just sometimes enjoy the ride. Yeah, I mean, I didn't enjoy the ride, Kirk.
I appreciate you saying that, but it didn't feel that way.
Well,
we felt like you were right part of it,
Yeah.
And maybe that's because by the time we were winning a lot more and stuff. But man, it just didn't seem like you really, to me, demonstrated. And I think your coaching tree, you have a coaching tree, whether you want to know it or not, and you're part of one as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
You learn from those guys too.
Yes.
You have an NFL coach in your tree now.
Yeah, well,
which is
I tell you
pretty
what,
dope.
that was an interesting deal. That really was. So that's the neatest thing, and so glad to be.
So the Green Bay
of that.
Packers coach, Matt LaFleur, who I had the pleasure of being a student of because he was a grad assistant, but my good friend Nick Saharko played with him, actually learned how to play quarterback from him. Not that you didn't teach him, but learned at the next level how to play.
Yeah.
And he's just a solid guy. Yeah. But it's not a situation where I'm trying to brag about Matt LaFleur's success through you.
Right.
But I know because I knew him, he did look up to you and he did learn a lot from you. And just like you learned a lot from John Loop, you've now got this whole group of people now that Dave Matthews is a guy who probably was more similar to you when you were a kid than you'd like to admit.
Without a doubt.
Kind of a problem with authority.
Yep.
You know, funny, love the kid still. Just talked to him on the way here today, but didn't expect him to be like a coach or a teacher.
Right,
probably.
exactly.
And now he's that guy, and he's going to have some kids that follow him. And I think it's so cool the impact. Like you said, everyone gets inundated in the details, and the devil's in the details. True, but this whole podcast project, part of this is to try and like make sure that people know how impactful they were.
Yeah.
And to feel the love,
that.
to feel the love, because when you're getting people talking shit about you on M Live and stuff, that probably has to get old. Yeah. People are, if you're listening or watching, tell your old coaches, get a hold of your old teachers. Nick Saharko recently got a hold of one of his old teachers and had a sit down with them from 25 years ago. And the guy was crying, I think, because he didn't realize what kind of impact it was. So that's all I'm saying.
It really is, it's interesting with some of those, even a Tony Niemeyer.
I forgot to mention Tony.
For Coach Schwartz, it's hard to believe that, when I think about it, we've known each other now for over 20 years, going back to when I was in 7th grade, in junior high, 6th and 7th grade. It's been over 20 years that I've known him, and over that time, first he was my coach, my mentor. And now, I'm fortunate to count him as one of my friends and a close friend at that. And, I've been really fortunate over time to, play in college and now being a college coach. I've been a part of a lot of different teams and been with a lot of people. And there's not a lot of, first off, when I was in college, I didn't have many teammates who could say those kind of things about their coach. The fact that I can say that my high school head coach has been one of my biggest mentors and closest friends as I've progressed throughout my career is very special to me, and I don't say that enough. And it's hard to put those words out there sometimes. But I want Coach Schwartz to know that. But really, for me, there's always with Coach Schwartz, there's always been 3 things. The first one is just the amount of fun we had playing for you. I still tell kids today, you don't want to be the kid that smells like 5 miles of bad road. Don't be the guy who's sitting at home eating Cool Ranch Doritos and drinking a Fresca or a Sweet Tab or anything like that while everyone else out here is working. The other reason why it was fun is because you did such a great job of putting great people around us. Sometimes questionable people with questionable paths and life advice here and there, but you put people around us that cared about us and our development and who made sure that we had fun, and that came from the top. That doesn't happen unless the guy running the show values that. And that's why I think we had such a great experience playing for you. Yeah, we won and we were very successful, but we were successful because of the work that we put in and because you made it fun to be part of. I talk about as a coach being able to give people opportunity versus purpose. And I think what's been so special about Coach Schwartz is that, it's really easy to give kids opportunity. You can let them be on the team and they have an opportunity to be part of something. But what's more special is when you can give them a purpose, and especially when you can teach them and have them understand and to build a purpose greater than themselves. And I think that's why we were so successful, is we had groups of individuals that came together in a community who, formed a purpose greater than itself to be to uplift each other and make each other better. And that and again, that's driven by the guy running the show at the top. And it feeds down into the players, and from the players it feeds into their families, and from the families it bleeds out into the community. And that was always evident. And I just, for me, I'll never forget. The thing that's always exemplified that for me looking back is just, my junior year when we had a student die, and, when we wore her initials on our armbands, and just did that run through the playoffs that we had, the first ever playoff win against Vassar, and his speech before that, and the one before the Frankenmuth game, with just those kind of things that just burned in my memory about the purpose that we had that was bigger than ourselves. And that's, it stuck with me to this day. But the last thing and the most important one has always just been just his coach's selfless nature, and it stuck with me the most for everything. And it just he put everything he had into us. When we were in high school, and then even after. When I was in college playing, I knew I could come home and I'd always have the opportunity to get my lift in and do my conditioning and have someone there to watch me and push me through it. And, looking back, I think about it, and I'm sure I called him and asked him to open a weight room for me or get a workout in or help me with something when it wasn't convenient for him. And he was still there. And of all the different things I've taken from him as a coach, that's been the biggest one, is to make sure that you're selfless with your players and that you give them everything you can. And he poured into us, and still does to this day. And I'm just so fortunate to have a man of his character in my life. And I guess to sum it up, Coach, just thanks for everything, and congrats again on the Hall of Fame. You're beyond deserving of it, on the field and off of it. I hope one day, once you're retired, you get the whistle back around your neck and get back on the field and get it going again. You still got a lot to give, and there's a shortage of men like you out there. And there's a group of kids who need a coach like you, and I hope that you can get back into it one day. It was great seeing you over the summer. I miss you. I love you, and just thanks for everything.
With some of those, even a Tony Niemeyer.
I forgot to mention Tony. He's got a huge future.
You get to know these people, and you've been around them, and like in Matt's situation, he's no different than you and I.
Well, he's better looking than me, at least.
Well, and I'm sure myself as well, but he certainly, he's got a passion for something.
Yeah, and it's genuine.
It's genuine, absolutely, and. And he was passionate, he was good. And then along the way, he got his breaks.
Yeah, of course.
And he's taken advantage of those breaks. And, obviously that was a great time in my life coaching those types of kids in Mount Pleasant, which helped me become a guy that grew into what I wanted to do, and being around people like that. And it's so much fun to follow him and
cool.
all of our kids that have come through that are off doing great things. And so many of you guys are. That it's just really neat and rewarding. I might not talk to somebody for a few years.
Yeah, I hadn't talked to you in a couple of years.
Exactly,
yeah.
But you're always keeping tabs on people, right, through people that you do talk to.
Yeah.
And that's what a fraternity is. That's right, what a sorority is. That's what a tradition is. I always get a kick out of these people that think tradition is about winning games. And yeah, it's part of it. But really, when people come back and they line the fence line, or they
that's
come
what
back
leads to the wins, though.
Yes, exactly.
Right,
it's that type of tradition. Or they send you an email out of nowhere, or somebody invites you to their wedding. Those types of things. It makes you. We're human too. I mean, it makes us feel great that, hey, I actually was able to build a relationship with somebody that was influential at that time in their life. And as we were authoritarians at the time. So they looked at us as people that they could look up to. There's a lot of power in that. And it's very humbling. And it makes you think that, wow, this is something that somebody looks at me this way, and typically their families would too, because of the impact you're having on the kid. That's powerful.
It's awesome.
It's powerful, and
it's a job that, by the way, now yours came with the AD thing that kind of helped make happen for you, but at the same time, your actual paycheck for coaching was maybe $4,000 or something. I don't know. It wasn't huge.
It was, and I think at that time, I think being the young guy that I was, I think I was taking my income tax money and all that and buying shoulder pads.
Yeah, that's the thing. You were spending all your time here.
But that's what you did, because that's who I learned from, and that was my passion at the time. I was single and I wasn't married and didn't have kids, and my only focus was my job, and that's all I wanted it to be. And a lot of times it still is. Because I know if I'm going to do a job and I'm hired to do it and people have the faith in me, you need to go above and beyond.
You need to honor your commitment to
exactly.
That,
and I know with the football part of it, that was my whole life at that time. If somebody would have said to you or said to me, hey, you got a choice. We're going to go on this boat and we're going to have a great time, or we're going to go to this beautiful golf course in northern Michigan, or we're going to go to the Tiger game and sit on top of the dugout, or we can go do an offensive line weight lift session.
No questions.
There's no question where I'm at.
Especially if Miller's driving the boat.
Yeah.
He's a mess.
Geez, absolutely.
Captain.
Yeah, that's certainly not the Love Boat there. But so anyway, it was just one of those deals where that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't you felt you had to, that's what your passion was.
Now, when you walked away, now you met Angie, who was our athletic trainer. It wasn't a Me Too situation. If anything, she probably aggressed you because you were kind of a pansy back then.
Exactly.
And also, I don't think being the head coach at a school you're contracted to be at once in a while puts you in a position of power to her either. So just to clarify.
That's a perfect example of telling somebody a lot of lies, and they just continue.
You gave her the old resume too.
They buy them. That's because I certainly overmarried.
So now definitely overmarried. She's awesome, and you now have a young daughter together, and she's like a spitting image. I see her and you and her too, but she's a lot like Angie.
Let's hope so. Let's hope that it's going that route, and I have no problem saying that.
But I want to ask you though, when you walked away in 2009, because that was when I was starting my career and stuff, and we had fallen out of touch a little bit. What led to that? Did you start to feel like you weren't having as much fun?
I'll tell you what it was. After 20 years of coaching to that point, whether it was a head coach or an assistant, that's all I did.
Yeah.
It was 12 months a year. When it was a snowstorm in the middle of February, we were in the weight room, whether it was Mount Pleasant or the 1 year at Corunna or the time here.
Corunna, Jake Smith, former guest.
Yes, absolutely.
Or, sorry, Jake Adams.
Yep.
Jake Adams.
Again, part of those relationships, you hear that name from years past, and it just brings a smile to your face.
Of course.
People know people.
Yeah.
But, it got to a point, I very easily could have continued, but there was some transition here at the school district at the time.
In terms of organizational,
just
economics.
Administrative roles. And I remember back in, God, it would have been 2006. They had me as the assistant principal at Kramer, the district athletic director, and the football coach.
Wearing a lot of hats.
And it took 5 years off my life. Right. I say that, and I think it might have.
Yeah.
And just because I'm not a guy that knows how to cut corners, I guess that's probably...
You're a little obsessive in that way, yeah.
Yeah, you just really want to be entrenched in everything you're doing. And really, that's a weakness that I had because it comes back to cook your goose. Right. And once Mr. Mertz took over as a superintendent, he pulled me out of that and said, you need to be right back in the conditioning classes, which we hired you for, being a football coach AD, which was still a ton on my plate, or anybody's plate, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So everything was good. And then once the district had closed Hughes Elementary or made the decision to, they had to go back and reshuffle administrative responsibilities. So I was told up front, and I appreciate them being honest, which I was going to have to go back for 3 straight years and be the assistant principal at Kramer again. Poor Mr. Glasgow.
Which luckily is just a walk down the street.
In the district AD. And at that point, I was tired, and I knew we were losing a great group of seniors, and I knew how much time we were going to have to spend in the off season. And I just, at that time, it wasn't something that I was looking forward to anymore because I knew what the next school year was going to look like with the assistant principal and the AD.
And things were heating up with you and Angie too, right? Were you guys married? You guys were married at that point?
Yeah, we had married in 2004, and that was a great experience, obviously. But I just got to a point where if I was going to take a break and a step back, this was the time because I knew what the next 3 years were going to do to me.
So
I knew that I was not going to take a step back from football as far as the work ethic, and I knew I wasn't going to take a step back in anything that I was involved in, but I'd already been through it, and I knew it was just the time to take a break. The other interesting thing was I really knew was I think it was, well, as we all know around here, John Glenn has turned into our huge rival. Okay.
Which you brought back. We weren't even playing them for a while.
We weren't. Yeah. And I figured, well, we had a great thing going with All Saints. But,
it's your alma mater.
But let's take Glenn on. Let's really take ourselves to that next level if we think we're there.
Yeah.
And All Saints was certainly a tough one at that time. But I just felt John Glenn, if we're going to do it, that's the time to do it.
Yeah, they're a bigger school, so you got to
bigger school.
Playing up a little
playing
bit.
Up, all that sort of stuff. We played them in every other sport.
Right.
Okay, so let's enhance the rivalry.
Right.
And boy, did it did. And I'm glad that it did because it increased everything. It took the interest and the intensity of every sport that we played, boys and girls, and it took it to a whole new level, and it's still that way today.
It's cool.
They look at us as their number one, and we look at them as our number one in regards to rivalry.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'll never forget. And I knew it was time, or close to the time. We were playing John Glenn 2009, my last year as a head coach. And
so that was like your last regular season game?
It was Glenn week. It was huge. I think we were 7-1, and they were 7-1 or 6. I don't know what it was. But it's always big, right?
Yeah.
And we went into that game, and I remember that week, and it was a beautiful fall day, and it was the last portion of practice, and it was the defensive portion of practice. And we had just got done with offense, and first time this had ever popped in my head, but I kind of just took a mental break from what was going on with practice, and I said, what am I going to put on the grill when I get home tonight.
Wow, your mind was wandering a little bit.
And I never, ever had that happen.
So
and
you listened to
then
yourself.
I said, whoa, that's weird. And then about a month later, when they brought me in after the season and said, we're going to make this change, you're going to have to go back for 3 years and be the assistant principal AD again. It was just enough for me to say, we have some young assistants in the program that any one of 3 or 4 could take over as the head coach and do a great job.
Right.
Maybe this is time. Maybe the program needs a change. And it was the right decision. It really was. Now, sometimes do I regret it? Absolutely. I remember talking to the kids in the tech hall and making the announcement that I was stepping away. No one saw it coming.
A lot of those kids that were like younger underclassmen that were expecting you to be the coach. Probably too. You kind of had like a commitment to that.
And it was weird. It was, and I remember, emotions get the best of you. And I remembered making that announcement. I was 99% sure it was the right decision. And I remember as soon as that thing was over, I remember just walking as quick as I could back to my old office over here, shutting the door, locking it, and I sobbed for an hour. Yeah. I bawled like a baby.
Yeah.
And I'm not embarrassed by that. But I just...
It was the end of an era.
It was the end for me in regards, there was a change in my life, a huge change coming, and I wasn't quite sure. I was afraid of that change.
Right.
And as it turned out, I'm very lucky because I got involved with football, got involved with Novell and stayed involved here a little bit with our guys and helping out. And
But it didn't come with necessarily 80 hours a week in the weight room and all that stuff. That gave you a little more time to spend time with the family and all that. It
helped a little bit. That was where I really needed the break from. It wasn't the kids. It wasn't the camps. And it was all those long grinds where you'd get out of school, you'd go to the weight room 4 days a week with your off-season stuff, whether it was winter or spring, right? And then every night you had an athletic event you had to go to.
Yeah.
And I'm not whining about that. No. I'm very fortunate for a guy like me with the attention span that I have, which isn't very far. It doesn't expand very far, but I'm a sports guy.
Yeah.
And to be able to get paid for being involved in sport as an AD, I'm pretty lucky, and I got to make sure I remind myself of that an awful lot.
Yeah,
I really do.
You certainly don't. You don't strike me as someone that takes a lot of things for granted. So
no, you can't.
Yeah.
You can.
So what are you going to leave the audience with here, in terms of we'll talk about the business at the end. I'm going to put that at the beginning in terms of the GAA golf outing. But what are you've given a lot of lessons already today, and I hope that you appreciate the love that you have. You're going to see some messages from some former players.
That's awesome.
I hope you're crying from those.
Yeah. Well, let's hope not. Yeah.
I put it this way: I got 13 and a half minutes from Adam Militello.
Oh, well, now that I got to tell you, I'm a little disappointed that wasn't longer.
Well,
because knowing Adam, I mean,
it's trimmed down, I think.
Yeah, and this is a compliment. Adam should be a politician. He was one of those guys that very well spoken and tell you what was on his mind, but he had the right way of doing it. And extremely intelligent and way beyond his years when it came to communication.
He also you'll hear this in his message, I'm sure. I haven't even watched it yet, but he was on my show a few weeks ago, he and his wife, because they're starting a gym down in Orlando.
Yes, I just talked to him not long ago.
And
actually.
he attributed you to him to getting, he was a scrawny little kid with some confidence issues, I think. And you're the one that got him into weightlifting. And then, of course, he took it from there and really extended that and started the program here and all that with your support.
Hello, Coach. This is number 51, Adam Militello, left guard extraordinaire. As you can see, I busted out the old Rydell jersey from back in 2004 season. Still got some good size filling out the shoulders. So as a football coach, mentor, leader of young men, I think back to those years, which were obviously some of the best years of my life because of football, but not just because of football, but because of you as my coach. Obviously you were my head coach for varsity, but even as a freshman and sophomore on the JV team, you were still the leader of the program, and we spent so much time together in the weight room. I had the privilege of going as a sophomore all 3 years, and Kirk and I actually rode together with R.C. DeRocher and Anthony Lohr my sophomore year, so I was the underclassman in that truck ride. That was a trip to say the least, but good memories all around. And most players who are dedicated to the cause get something out of it. But as I mentioned before, I had a lot of coaches. I had a lot of good assistant coaches, a lot of good position coaches, a lot of good coordinators. But you were the one constant through all 4 of those years. You'd be talking to us about, the X's and O's or who we were up against, doing the chalk talk. and then you would just slide in like this Dave Schwartz jab or like whimsical, like sarcastic comment. So thank you. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for coaching us. Thank you for telling all the tales that a coming of age group of young men. Well, for you, it might not be a beer, it'd probably be a cold Fresca or something like that. But we'll talk soon. Thanks, Coach.
He did.
But I think, you've been a really instrumental guy in his life.
He was a perfect example of one of those guys that it would be very, very easy for a coaching staff to not pay a lot of attention to as an 8th grader or a 9th grader.
Yeah.
But he's what you call a program kid. He found something that he enjoyed. He became very coachable and teachable. And then he took those
He became a coach in a way as a player.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He took a leader. He took those passions and developed himself and coached himself along with what we were providing and turned himself into a starter on a very good football team that, well, I think if I'm not mistaken, he was a senior with that team that went in 03 and just came, an eyelash from playing in the state semis.
Yeah.
And so he manufactured himself.
Right.
And those are the kids, and there's obviously hundreds of them, but those are the kids that you have the most pride in when you look back at it as a coach.
Yeah, of course.
Because those are the kids that grinded. Those are the kids that might have walked in without all the athletic ability and all the resources, but they came in and developed themselves and put themselves in a position where they earned everything that they got.
Yeah.
And that's why to see him in coaching and see so many other guys in coaching and just having success, you with what you have a passion for here with what you're doing, it really is kind of neat for a guy like myself that, spent a lot of time with you guys and watch you develop.
Yeah, well, I think you're probably entering a phase of your life now, you called it a twilight earlier, where like it just the natural tendency is to start probably thinking more about your legacy and things like that. Not in a selfish way. But it's just natural, right? It's just a natural.
I guess I never really knew what legacy meant. I mean, it's just,
But your legacy, a lot of people think that the legacy is all these pictures, and that's part of it, and the wins and the record. That's so not such a big deal. It's the family you have. Your Aunt Linda, who's responsible for a lot of the graphics, and your dad, like I know these people like they're my family.
I tell people this all the time. If you're a football coach or a basketball coach, I feel sorry for you if you don't have an Aunt Linda.
Because nobody has an Aunt Linda.
She was in my whole family. My dad with the football camps, and my mom and stepdad and stepmom and brothers, and everybody was so supportive and just completely bought in.
Of course,
to sacrificing for Dave and help him with anything that he needed as a family member. And Angie was the same way.
All right, we're back. We had an overheating issue. It's a public school, people. We don't have just carte blanche access to the thermostats. All right, it's 95 degrees in here. That's part of the deal. Okay.
Air conditioning is out, and that's part of the adversity we deal with.
We wanted it to be an experience that really mimics that of an AD at a public school. So thanks for the water, Dave.
Absolutely.
So you and I had a good conversation just now about when we got derailed before. I brought up, I don't even know what the fuck I brought up. Your legacy.
No.
And you were getting into how you've never really thought of it that way. And do we even need to wrap? Do we even need to say anything more about that? I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I just think it's one of those things. I think your legacy is obviously from a materialistic standpoint, what other people think of you. I think your legacy is how deep down you really feel the implant or the what you did at a place, the things you put out there, imprint, I should say, and then. How do you go to bed at night feeling good about, hey, I know I wasn't perfect here, there, or there. I should have did this, that, or the other thing. But do you know that your effort was in the right spot?
Were your intentions right?
Were your intentions right? Did you try hard? Were you a student of what you were doing? Were you trying to do what's best for people as much as you could? If you can sleep at night, and I do a little bit, I feel good about my effort, not about pressing all the right buttons, but the effort. I think really that's the legacy, how you look at yourself. Because deep down, you're not the mirror's not gonna lie when you look at your effort, and that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are some people that are kind of jack of all trades, master of none. I would kind of maybe fall into that. And there's a couple things that I really have gotten into, this being one of them. But I tend to kind of like dabble in stuff and like get a working knowledge of it, and then I like to move on. I don't know if it's an attention span thing or what. You're not that guy.
Yeah,
you're like all balls to the wall. Like the amount of effort you were putting into this low-paying high school opportunity is not that different than what your former players who are now coaching at the collegiate and NFL level are putting in terms of work and effort.
Yeah, it's all relative.
It's all relative, but it's a little easier to walk back to a paycheck that sometimes.
Well,
but,
believe me, once I think you hear this, and I've no matter what you're involved in, the grass is always greener somewhere else, regardless of how much money you're making, how much, I guess if you're into fame or notoriety, or if you're into whatever you're into, it's always, you think it's better somewhere else.
Right.
And very few times do we sit back for a second, like I was talking about earlier, and just say, you know what, I need to be thankful for what I have. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a couple of times that I was very close to leaving here and taking other jobs.
Right, which was a couple of good opportunities.
Great opportunities. Yeah. And something wasn't just right in regards to me leaving. And part of that was I wasn't ready to take on something new because I was still satisfied and still felt value here and was making a difference here and wasn't ready to leave. And sometimes I kick myself for that, for not going for the gusto and taking a new opportunity on, especially with some of the cool ones that were out there. But at the end of the day, I really don't think about it very long and don't regret it because this place has been special to me, gave me the first opportunity. People have been good to me here. And that gets back to always making sure that you realize that you better feel good about what you have.
Right.
Because it's not always better other places.
And it's not guaranteed that you're going to keep having that either.
Not at all.
I mean, it's pretty unbelievable that you've been in this AD role for 21 years in an environment where a lot of people have been turned.
No, when I got hired in this, I never, for various reasons, never in a million years thought I would still be here right now.
Right.
And you're right. Unfortunately, you see a lot of people, things happen nowadays in society with social media and all the different things you can get yourself in trouble for. And I guess just being in one place at one time with not screwing up yet. All right. I feel very good about that.
Yeah. I don't want you to get cocky, but I feel like your chance of screwing up probably that would have happened when you were 30. And
there's no doubt about it.
And not to say you can't fail.
And I think there was a lot of screw ups. I just think that I was never probably really caught.
And the culture wasn't necessarily on top of you.
A little different. Nowadays, you better make sure that you're represent. I like to tell our coaches and kids, and this is something that starts with me. Certainly, you got to put your money where your mouth is we're representing something much more than us, of course. Obviously, your family and your friends, but you're representing
the school.
We're an agent for a community is what we are.
Right.
And we're representing a community, a school district, a sports program, a team. And those are things that are very easy to forget. Mm-hmm. But once you do forget them, and you screw up, and we've unfortunately seen a lot of people over the years in a lot of different places get themselves in the headlines for the wrong reasons. They don't get out of their own way. Sometimes it's too late to correct those things. Right. And you got to keep telling yourself, man, what I have here, I'm fortunate to have it.
Yeah, it's always a balance of that and then growing complacent. You know, like
no doubt.
You want to count your blessings, but you don't want to count your blessings, kind of thing. You know,
exactly.
It's like
you're always looking for that new challenge and that next thing that you can improve on. But sometimes you still got to sit back. And the one thing that I would get back and change from all those years of football was just maybe enjoying success or enjoying something that happened positive, and it, regardless of what it was. Enjoying it for a minute instead of going on to the Millington scouting report.
I know, but
or instead of this, so that sometimes you just, and that's what I keep telling Jake and all the the people here and the coaches is, God, that's good stuff. Just try to enjoy it for a second, because you tend to remember the frustrating times more than the good times. And there's a lot of good times. You just got to take the time to really remember it.
I totally appreciate what you're saying, but at the same time. So I'm with you on that. I appreciate that. But at the same time, it's like letting your foot off the gas is something that we didn't learn from you. We learned the opposite. You know, we learned that you don't rest on your laurels, which I just use in my business speak bullshit conversation. But coach, by the way, go listen to business jargon. Just you call that coaching jargon, and it's basically a lot of the same shit. But that is part of it. So you gotta you embrace your skill. Your skill was being kind of an obsessive. Yeah. One of your skills was being obsessive and making sure things got done the right way. And sometimes the people that tend to celebrate their victories forget about that. Yeah. So,
and I didn't come here to, and I don't mean to make this sound bad. I didn't come here to make a ton of friends, or I didn't come here do this. I came here to fulfill what I was hired to do, and that's the type of mentality I learned from the people around me growing up, the coaches and
your dad,
parents
your mom,
and family and those types of things. If you're going to do it, you put everything into it. So I didn't come here for any other thoughts than to be the best AD that I could, especially really going to have to learn because I didn't really have any background in that stuff, although I was a lot of my college studies was geared towards it. To be the best mentor as a football coach that I could be. I wasn't coming here to be somebody's best friend. I was coming here to build those things and marry myself to those things.
Right.
And that's what I felt I was hired to do. And as I told Joe today, when I stepped down from football, as the guy that had the faith in me, in regards to that was hope I didn't let him down, but that's what my job was to outwork everybody. And
I think you did.
And I hope I did. That's the one thing you would take pride in. Not so much did I press the right button here to make the right decision there. It's irrelevant because if you spend your time trying to figure all that out, you'll go nuts.
And not to mention, like you're only responsible for putting the thing on paper, and then the players. Just like anything, like you had to make the call, and you live with what the call was, and yeah. There's just
from an X's and O's standpoint, but
even from a behavioral standpoint, because you're seeing a lot of people now. This isn't going to happen to you because I know you're a squeaky clean guy, but like some people are getting in trouble now for shit they did 45 years ago when culturally it was acceptable. So the reason I bring that up, I'm not trying to say like cancel culture is bad, but the reason I bring that up is the shit you're doing now probably isn't right because there is no right, and in 30 years it's definitely not going to be right. So don't get it's the intention, it's the effort and the work and the example you set, and we appreciate that. I can't stress that enough.
And the other thing too that sometimes that people forget about, and I wasn't always very good at this, was, if a mistake happens or if you do something wrong, it's going to happen. It's how you deal with it going forward. How do you pick up the pieces? How do you learn from it?
Maybe that's why getting smoked by Chesney was good for my class.
Probably.
I mean, that was the first time we'd really ever gotten our asses kicked in anything, really.
Yeah, and there's always somebody bigger and badder.
Right.
And if you don't when you meet up against those people, if you don't take the time to apply what you've learned and see how other people do things instead of pointing the finger, you're never going to advance. And you guys were good with that. You guys understood the fact that, again, that whole concept. You look in the mirror, you don't point a finger. Sure, you might realize somebody around you made a mistake, but that's where you become their teammate and their brother, and you support them because
you've made mistakes too.
That's going to happen to you. And that's when people police each other and when people support each other and when people genuinely feel good for the other guy, when good things happen to them, instead of that, why
jealousy
not me? And there's a lot of that. Look at our society. I mean, geez, that's the way our society is. Look at the government. I mean, we've talked about that. It's that's the way it is. I mean, just everyone, you got to feel good for people, and
it's easier to feel good for people. Ernie Harwell has a quote where he says that the easiest thing in the world is to be nice to people. It takes a lot of effort to be an asshole. It really does, and you see it on the people that that are kind of like recurring assholes. Their faces look different. They're kind of scrunched together. They're mad.
Yeah.
Why is everyone such?
Cool. And it's society now sometimes. But you're right. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you look at it and say, okay, I just got done being a jerk to somebody, as compared to being nice to somebody. And don't get me wrong, I've been my fair jerk in my life.
Yeah, of course. If you felt it was warranted, though, generally,
you got to make a stand. You got to draw the line. But again, it all comes down to how you present. It's all in the presentation.
Of course.
How do you present yourself, and that sort of stuff. And excuse me here. Let me.
There's a dog barking in Dave's desk. It's just his phone.
Let me turn just the phone here. I didn't stash the dog here for the day.
Same.
But you just got to be able to take accountability, and sometimes it's not easy. Yeah. Sometimes you want to play the blame game,
and sometimes it's not your fault. But as a leader, you kind of end up making it yours.
It's better
part of it.
Like we talked about earlier. You look in the mirror and say, "Okay, it wasn't my fault, but what can I do better to take that person or that individual or take that mistake and put them in a better position to succeed,
so that they learn from it without beating themselves up too." And that's a big part of leadership.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I'd rather beat myself up than watch somebody else do that.
Yeah. Well, so now one last thing before we get into the final part of this, and this podcast is my podcast. I don't want to be selfish, but let's talk a little bit about my class in general. Just like, how did that? Like, what are some things that you thought were special about that class? What are some things that you wish we could have seen a little better?
Yeah.
I'll lead off with something a little bit self-disparaging. I never had to work that hard to kind of be like good at sport. I wasn't a great athlete. I wasn't fast. I wasn't strong. but I also like was good enough to. I wish I would have worked harder in the weight room. Is what I'm trying to say. But I also was playing sports all the time, but like I see Adam Militello. I see this Van Sumeren kid who's.
Both of them.
He's I don't even know the young one, but Ben, the one that's at Michigan State now. I mean, like, he's a man. Yeah. He was a man at 14s that I've never been in terms of physically. Right. You know, it's like so. Well,
but see, you hit on something there. It's hard to. You were doing what we wanted our kids to do, which was play 3 sports.
Right.
At the time, I don't believe we had the conditioning classes and the chances that you could, the resources then where you could take it during the school day.
Right.
You know, and do those types of things. But that's a perfect example, Kirk. You went through it and you learned, boy, if I had it to do all over, this is what I would have done.
Well, I don't know if I would do that because I still like not lifting too.
No, I don't know. Some people do, some people don't.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, too, that in regards to taking care of yourself, lifting weights and the conditioning, those are lifelong health situations in your life or health components that you can take with you your whole life. That it isn't just trying to get bigger so you can take on a guard better.
Right. So you live longer.
You live longer, and you get healthy habits to take care of yourself.
Right.
So those were some of the things that we were trying to get across as well, because those are things you can take with you your whole life. But as far as the weight training and those types of things, those were things that were all brand new. And we were bringing to the table. And
you can take that if you need to.
That's right. And we were learning, and we were trying to get you guys to understand the relevance of it. And some kids did more than others.
Right.
But your group was special from the standpoint is, obviously everyone was thinking, they went 9-0 and hosted that, that first playoff game in school history, which I believe it was, and all that cool stuff.
Yeah.
And, but the thing that's really, really was the identifier with your group and why you guys were successful, not just in football, but a lot of sports, and it might still be in the showcase, is that academic all-state.
Oh, yeah, we were academic.
You guys were the number 1 team in the entire state for Division 5 for Team GPA.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That, and this is coming from a guy that couldn't spell CAD if you spotted me the C and the T. I was never, believe me, a big academic guy at all. Yeah. And the fact that I graduated college, let alone high school, is still a minor miracle. It's one that should be one of the wonders of the world. And this is coming from a guy that didn't put a lot of relevance into that stuff. But for you guys, as time has gone on for me, that is the thing that defined your group more than anything.
And that probably showed its face in, like, you didn't have to harp on us. Like, we knew the play. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the intelligence came through on the field,
the athletic ability was adequate.
Adequate, right.
But the smarts, the desire to be taught and to be coachable, the things that you guys picked up with what we were teaching you and then ad-libbed on your own were things that you can't teach.
Well, we got us in trouble sometimes.
It did, but you still got to be an athlete. You still got to play. You still got to go outside the box, and you can't just be a robot.
Yeah.
And you guys were so intelligent and so smart. And I can say football smart, which was the truth, but you guys were also smart in everything that you did.
Right. Which is our
and that made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And we that Novell game we lost. That team had a lot more athletic ability than us.
I think we outgained them.
And we were right. Well, that gets down to the coach not doing a good job in the red zone, and we didn't take.
We had some turnovers down.
But that was a perfect example of that football team to put themselves in a position where, yes, it was a heartbreaking loss. It wasn't our night. Okay, but you put yourself to be 9-0, and you put yourself to host 3 playoff games if we went that far.
Yeah.
And that was all done with kids that were very average athletes,
right? That
cared about what they were doing, and they were plugged in.
Right.
They paid attention. 2 words that can change your life: pay attention.
PFA.
Pay attention.
Yeah.
And you guys absorbed that.
Well, yeah,
you practiced
that's
that.
Cool. That's cool. I mean, we were following a good group of leaders. So thank you for all that.
Yeah.
One last comical part before the final part. You're a skilled improvisationalist in terms of calling kids, not in a mean-spirited way whatsoever. I never perhaps more than any other coach I've ever had. Like, I never saw you actually try and undress a kid to make him feel bad or something. Mm-hmm. If you undress somebody, you may have done it to me once or twice, maybe. Mm-hmm. I didn't really respond well to that, but it was because you were trying to teach that kid something or whatever. Mm-hmm. But you were great at calling kids buckethead or great. So would you be comfortable just giving me some of your greatest hits?
Well, there was in the heat of battle when you're passionate and you're teaching and you're coaching,
It just comes.
things come out. Things come out, and then they come out, and then there's that time they come out where the team takes 5 seconds and they just laugh their tails off.
Including the coaches. Yeah.
And then sometimes you got to sit back and you laugh yourself because you have to. You gotta break it up, and you gotta have those times. Some of those things just came out, and it was
Peanut head, grape head, bucket head.
Some it was stuff I heard from old coaches or when I played, and then you would just thing that would run across your mind, and you'd put it out there, but you knew is you were throwing some humor in. That was just my style. Not to say it was right. You threw humor in with some of the corrective feedback you had to give to people.
Yeah, to make it a little easier to swallow.
Now, it depended on the kid too. You know, it's like at a quarterback here we all loved, and Brett Boone. I loved Brett. Brett was.
You had to handle him differently though. Yeah.
You had to, and the way you handled him was if you didn't scream at him 5 times a day, he thought it wasn't a productive practice, and that's what I loved about Brett because he wanted to be held accountable to the T. I mean, I remember when we had one practice. We came back and we charted practices, what we did, and we had them all scripted. You knew that, the plays and the hashes and the down and distances and all that stuff.
Yeah,
probably what drove me to retirement is all that stuff. But
NFL level.
I remember we came out of one practice and it was a darn good practice, and I think it was a playoff preparation. We're getting ready for somebody.
Yeah,
and he was a little down, and come on, you all right? Come on, we play in a couple days. And I figured it was I didn't get after him enough, and I didn't have to. He had a great practice,
right?
And he was disappointed because I think we were 21 or 22 of 24 in throwing the ball that day in practice that they weren't completed. And that's the type of guy that you got to have some of those guys.
Yeah.
But then you also got to have guys that can let everything roll off their back a little bit,
right?
And you got to have some humor, and you got to break it up, especially as long as we practice and what we did to you guys for crying out loud.
Yeah.
There had to be some humor in that stuff. So I'm glad you brought that up because there were some one-liners from other coaches and some things that were done that you had to just football camp up at CMU, the things that we did around the campfire, the jokes, the things. Those are things that are priceless, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, so many memories, most of which are just going to stay right here. They're private memories. They're not going to mean anything to you anyway. If people watching or listening, but I hope you can feel the love and see the love. If you want to know more about Dave, I don't know, just ask Dave. He's always looking for people. He's always looking for people to help support around Essexville.
Absolutely.
Now, Dave, we have something coming up at the end of August. That's been a big fundraiser that helps make a lot of these things happen. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, real quick. This started way back in the day. I think when you were in school, I think Larry Boone and Joe Sharon and a lot of the dads started this thing here. I think Larry had saw it back in Marshall High School back in the day and brought it here, and I'm glad he did. And it was the big golf outing, and we still do it to this day. The only difference is the dads aren't running it and the GAA aren't running it. I'm running it, and I've done it for probably 12 years. And if I'm running a golf outing,
you're a bad golfer.
We need a lot of help. I am an absolutely horrible golfer.
One of the beautiful things about the GAA golf outing, which we're talking about, is that I don't know if this is still the case, but it used to be a case the last time I golfed, is that on a select par 3, we'll call it hole 11.
It was hole 11, yeah.
Dave Schwartz, great fit guy, but just hasn't committed a lot of time to golf.
Time and effort, man.
You got to golf with him. He was like your fifth shot on a foursome. And sometimes that might be like a Phil Mickelson, and you're like, oh, this guy's going to stick one close. That's not what it's about. But it's fun. Seeing someone willing to not be the best at something is part of the appeal of you too. Yeah.
It's one of those things. Golf is time and money. And I still think I got balls that are rolling down Arms Road that I hit over that net because I couldn't hit it straight.
You're not using expensive balls, are you?
Oh, no. I think I might be using wiffle balls. But the fun part about now is and this is part of the tradition. We have a team called the Quarterback Club. And I'm on that because I coach the quarterbacks.
Varsity quarterbacks. Lower level quarterbacks don't count. Apparently.
Yeah, you weren't because Kirk was a quarterback, believe it or not.
Bullshit.
And once they get the offensive tackle or linebacker club going, then you're on that team.
Yeah, but quarterbacks are better golfers, though.
Well, they should be. I'm certainly not one myself, but that's been fun because you talk about tradition and that sort of stuff. Nick Zaharko and I were able to rotate it every year. We bring in different quarterbacks, and we have our little quarterback club team.
Yeah,
and boy. That's a lot of work for me to put on a golf outing because I couldn't spell golf if you spotted me the G and the F. But I got to tell you, that is one of the highlights of my doings as an athletic director. Number one, pulling that off.
Yeah.
But number two, dealing with some of the past kids that I had to get after, and I had to push and coach, and now we just sit in a golf cart and have a Fresca or a Tab or a Tang or something, and we just laugh and talk about old times over a stupid game of golf.
Yeah, and I also like how it's something that's developed since the earlier years is you've got like sponsored holes by different teams. So like on a softball par 5, you might hit a ball off a tee or soft toss or something, and then you get to tee off from there if you donate the money to the softball.
And I got sidetracked, and we were talking about the golf outing, and it's developed into this event. And you know what? It is really important to us because it's something that we'd always want to make bigger. We always average around 20, low 20 teams. We can always take up to 32. And we used to be in the high 20s when we first started this. We want to get back to that.
Let's do that, people.
Yes, absolutely. We have about 100, roughly around 100 signs that are sold, purchased for $100.
Okay.
Businesses, different groups that go on the course.
Then they go in the end zone.
Then they go on the sideline for the homecoming game. Then they go in the football program and the athletic website. So it's an advertisement thing for $100, your business. Yeah. But the big thing is getting people back to be in the outing, get in a foursome. It's $320 a foursome,
$80 a head.
person. They get you the lunch, they get you the dinner, they get you all the chance for the door prizes and all that sort of stuff. But really, it's cool when you see different Garber people come back every year. We need more, and I want more, because it puts a smile on your face when you see so many people come back that want to give back financially, and that's not what it's really about.
No,
although people are paying to be, every sport gets the same amount of money as all the sports. We share it equally, so it's a team effort. Yep. All the coaches are out doing the sign selling and getting the teams, and so it's a team effort.
Yeah.
And to see people come back and want to do that, it doesn't stop, guys.
Athletic director, they're not that important. He just doesn't take them. That's fine.
And It really is a special day, and we want to see more of our alumni come back and just have fun.
Okay.
Have fun, man.
So we're going to challenge you people listening.
You're not going to win. Coach Quillard's team is stacked every year. He's going to win it every year.
Yeah, they're cheaters. That's how it works.
And there's probably some of that, but they never lose, so that's going to happen.
I won one time, and I brought, because I was kind of mad that I wasn't on the quarterback team, I assembled an all-star team that featured Tom Holmes, who was a hell of a player, especially in a scramble type event.
Yeah.
Adam Prime, who's just a great player.
Absolutely.
And then Gabe Koszelski, the kicker, the nose tackle himself, is a good player as well. And the four of us won. It was I think we were receiving like cheat comments, but we didn't cheat.
I think Coach Quillard probably still suffering from that. Now, the thing I like about what you just said is you were disappointed about not being part of the quarterback club team. So we really motivated you for one of your better performances that day.
So maybe I was a guy that would have done better with a little more tough love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, if you're a former middle linebacker, quarterback turned offensive tackle, which is there's a lot of them out there. Very specific group. That might be a twosome. Yeah. Hit me up if you're a baseball player. Contact me. Go to the show notes. You're going to see a sign-up sheet. It's $80 a head. If you can find a rich guy in your team, you don't have to pay probably. Make it happen. I'm going to be there. There's going to be other folks that the quarterback team's going to be there. Come support the team. It's a fun event. If you're a drinker, there's plenty of that to go around. If you're not, it's fun too. It's a good, wholesome school event. It's
and
cool.
You mentioned not every, but a lot of different holes every sport has their own little fundraiser there. You can chip a ball into a basketball hoop, and you can volleyball, spike it out, and
throw the football.
And we've never lost that. By the way, I'm going to make sure everyone understands that the quarterback club has never ever lost the quarterback throw, and the day that happens,
I would hope not.
The day that happens, the day is I will either retire completely or I will be certainly out of the golf outing.
Yeah.
We've had some people try to cheat and punt and do different things to unseat us, but I don't. That's why we keep bringing Randon and some of the big guns, because they're going to put that thing out there.
One year I played with Grizz somehow. He somehow got off. He was off the
official quarterback club team will be myself, Nick, Randon, and Grizz this year.
Boone can't come back?
Couldn't come back for this one, but we'll get him back here eventually again.
Brett, let's start an alternative.
Jake Hebert is a part of that. I've always tried to get John Morosi, but he's claimed that he's a worse golfer than me. So, and plus he's usually at Fenway Park or something that weekend,
he's a
so I
busy
can't get my hands on him. Where's he going to want to be, the county course or Fenway Park?
Right.
I think it's a pretty easy decision.
Yeah.
But so no, it's all good, and it's a great cause. It goes back to all of our sports, and it's just a chance for us to have fun before the fall season kicks off.
Yeah.
And the school year kicks off. So please, create a team.
There's another important part here. We didn't even talk about this because people are sick of it, but you had to adapt a lot as a school, as a community, as an AD, as a sports staff to COVID, including probably, I'm sure last year this didn't happen, right? Did the GAA happen last year?
We were able to pull this off.
You were, okay.
Some mandates had changed right around that time.
This will be the first, but again, this will be the first normal one for a while.
We needed that celebration at that time because the difficulty for everybody involved, whether you were a school official, a teacher, a coach, an official,
a taxpayer
parent,
down the street, whatever.
It was absolutely, it was the most difficult thing by a mile that I've ever had to go through trying to do your job in the school district. And that's just not me. Anyone would tell you that.
An AD's primary job, not to say there aren't a lot, but it's to schedule. I mean, so when you have uncertainty, no disrespect to it, but when there's uncertainty, how do you get reps? How do you get the game?
So many things were changing with schedules, with officials, with transportation, and then you had all the mask mandates and all the things that the MHSCA was going through, and they did a fabulous job of providing us information. And all the change that took place it was on a daily basis, multiple changes, things that you had to adjust to, and things that there was no blueprint for.
Right.
We had never done this before, been through anything like this.
Right.
And, and it became very, very stressful. But again, when you got good people around you and you circle the wagons,
Coach speak.
Yeah. You circle those wagons and you rely on good people. Man, there's a lot of people that came to the forefront and got us through this. I mean, again, so many people, so many different groups.
If you're listening to this speech right now and you're thinking, wow, I didn't give back in 2020, the hardest year in the history of humankind, you're thinking, maybe you're feeling guilty. That's fine. We'll prey on that guilt. Get yourself a team in the GAA.
Without a doubt.
We're going to, let's see if we can get 2 teams. I'm serious. 2 teams that are specific, that were rounded out completely from a talk in the attic. Okay. I'll be one of those.
Yeah.
So I need 7 people. Let's go.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right.
Good plug. Great plug.
Okay. So, Dave, I can't express how grateful I am. Not that you sat down today, of course, that's part of it too, but just all the time and energy and love that you've given us, man. We appreciate it. I hope we can reflect it back to the next generation of kids and all that. So.
Well, let's hope so. I've learned a lot from an awful lot of people, including you guys. And like I said, we're humans too, and you guys provide just as many great memories and experiences and relationships to us as we do you guys. And I'm just sitting back as a 53-year-old guy now and reflecting. You've got me doing that a little bit more now, and very, I guess the key word for me would just be thankful.
Yeah, that's how. There's a lot of love could go all around.
Very thankful.
Just for old time's sake, why don't you give me your favorite play call?
I'm always been
No. I don't even. You don't even need to explain it. I want to hear I like hearing it. You know what I'm saying?
The specific player, just one of my favorite scheme plays.
I just like hearing split right, 952 twists.
Oh, geez,
something like that.
Okay,
and you can make shit up. I'm going to use this do a couple in a row.
Space right 131.
I hope that's not your favorite play.
No,
come on, let's make it more fun.
Twin left 152. And these are running plays. You got to establish the run.
Establishing the run even in this exercise.
Absolutely.
Let's get some fullback action.
I write 852 cross. Wasn't ever a big trap guy, but we like to run that option dive. So
41.
You would just go, I left, run it weak side, go 141. See if you can veer underneath the tackle and get underneath him a little bit. Mm-hmm. If the linebacker, the right tackle, if he could ever get to the linebacker, would be a good play for us. Okay.
Well, in 2002, the right tackle was getting
sure
there.
He did. I'm sure that right side there, you guys were always on top of things. You guys did not want to play offense. You just couldn't wait for defense.
Oh, we still racked up a lot of points.
And we did.
I was using wrestling moves. There's a lot of footage of me if I was getting beat, I would just hold the guy and just toss him over.
Yeah, those triple X shoulder pads we gave you didn't work a whole lot because you were grabbing and throwing people. So, but no, there was a lot of fun plays, a lot of good things. They obviously changed over the years with some of the terminology.
Honest to God, the 250, 252
cross and twist and all that.
That's my favorite play of all
Those
time.
things were never covered. I mean,
They're never covered.
If you could run the ball, if you could run the counter, those plays were impossible to cover.
Even at Saginaw Valley, like the hole, which was a zone we didn't even discuss here, as was evidenced by the 2005 loss to New Val. Or 2004 loss to New Val.
Yeah, that was
it's no man's land unless you got a bunch of speed, and you stop the run first. So like, folks, if you're listening, get behind the linebackers and in front of the safety. That's where you're golden. If you can get a guy to throw the ball in there, you're good to go.
That's the key spot, regardless of the coverage. It's a very, very tricky place to go. There's a lot of, if you can get there,
potential pick opportunities.
And you see a lot of football nowadays. Football's changed so much that you see a lot of people attack that with a lot of success.
Yeah,
I mean, really, football, as you well know, has changed so much in just 15 years, and not only scheme, but the way you're allowed to practice and, all the different things.
Concussions
and it's probably good. It's good if we want to save the great game and make sure everybody's safe in any sport, and not just football. But as we move along and science and technology become better, which is my expertise, we
world
learn,
studies as well.
Yeah. We learn that there's ways to preserve the things that we do, and hopefully that continues.
Yes, people stop complaining about the new way. It just is what it is, all right?
It ain't going back.
No, they're not going to have leather helmets anymore. Deal with it, okay?
No, not at all.
That would probably help the concussions if people just didn't have good helmets.
I know some people that would probably help quite a bit, the leather helmets, as opposed to the good protective ones. So
Jim Miller was a spear, but he was one of the lucky ones, all right? Dave, thank you so much.
Yeah. Hey, great to be a part of it, Kirk. Great time, great questions, great conversation, and hopefully looking forward to seeing some more alum over the years and in getting a chance to communicate with them, because it certainly is very special. Duke Open this year, Saturday, August 21st, 9 a.m., Bay County course. $320 per foursome, which includes your cart, your golf, your lunch, your dinner at the end, the door prizes, all that sort of stuff. And all that money goes back equally to all of our sports teams. If you're not interested, can't make it, but like to buy a golf sign for your business or just yourself or your family, it's $100. Contact me, 989-460-2426.
First time we got a personal number given out.
Yes.
No prank calling.
Well, that's not a personal. That's the one that's been ringing off.
You can see how he handles calls that come in. So leave a message for him. All right. Yeah. Thanks so much, Dave.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.